Welcome to AM Muscle Maintenance with In Shape Fitness. I'm Coach Kim, and today's workout is called 4 on the Floor. I love making up the names of these quick sessions. It's going to be about 15 minutes of workout time, and it doesn't require equipment. I encourage you not to wear shoes on your feet to really make the connection with whatever floor surface you're using and to go for it. There are 4 exercises. There are going to be variations on several of the exercises, but we're going to warm up with a postural systems check, the lighthouse exercise for balance and a little bit of a heart rate boost. And then we're going to do these 4 exercises, and that's it. That is it. It is Monday, the beginning of September. I am in New York City, back in New York after my summer in Virginia. And it's always such a motivating time. Of course, it's a motivating time for me, partly because I'm a mom and I have a child in the elementary school system in New York City. And I finally have a little bit of time to get back to work and really enjoy the benefits of being in New York and getting to see my clients again, who also mostly go away for the summer. So I'm really excited today. I love starting these workout sessions with a postural systems check. This is just my way, the way I call standing in a space with your eyes open, with your hands beside your body. Your palms should face out a little bit. We have this weird thing we've been doing in modern life where the palms turn in, and that is a concaving of your chest, a pulling on your back. And you don't want that. That's not natural, the anatomical neutral position of your body. If your palms turn out slightly, about 45 degrees, so that your palms kind of, or rather your thumbs sort of point out, your chest is sort of starting that process of opening back up. You're alleviating some pressure on your back. So the postural systems check in part is simply a way, about a minute of time for you to breathe deeply and to think about your body parts, to think about your plumb line, which is the name given to the straight line that should run down, the invisible straight line that runs down the side of your body from the top of your head through your ears, passing through your shoulders. So if your head is forward because you're doing what I'm doing right now, which is leaning over a desk to make sure that I can speak into the microphone well. But if your head is not back, your head is too far forward. And that is a deviation also from anatomically correct posture that you would like to correct, because there are many things, I'll talk about this when we do the lighthouse in a minute, related to your balance and your gait that relate to the position of your head. It doesn't seem like there should be, but there are. So then the plumb line continues down through the shoulders, through the hips, the top of your pelvis, and then through your knees, and of course down to your ankles and your feet. Your legs should be about shoulder width apart. Your feet should be about shoulder width apart, and you shouldn't turn your toes out. If you have a tendency to turn out your toes and you have just given up on the fact that you're sort of bow-legged, okay, there's conditions we have to deal with. That means you have weak inner thighs, probably tight outer thighs. You have issues with your back. You probably have issues with your knees and your hips potentially. And so there is, the position, the way that your feet turn out, which is normal. Your body, and this is the primitive part of the brain. This is not something you can control, but your body seeks stability. Your brain treats your equipment in some automatic ways that you do not control, unless you try to control them. And turning your feet out provides you with stability. However, your feet should be straight, especially when you attempt certain exercises. Not really a lot of the exercises we're going to try today. On one, I'm going to remind you to keep your feet straight in a couple of minutes. But you want to also then make sure that your right and your left leg have some relative equilibrium between the two legs. Okay, so that's the postural systems check. Take a couple of deep breaths. Inhale through your nose and exhale through your mouth. 4 more really deep breaths. I don't turn the music up when I stop talking. I'm just going to keep on guiding you through. The depth of the breath is really important. And by inhaling through your nose, you've got these great spectroscope filters inside of your nasal cavity. They consume the oxygen more efficiently and provide your body with a level of control over things like stress hormones and your heart rate. So inhaling through your nose, exhaling through your mouth is great. Okay, now we're going to do an exercise for your balance. And it's going to make your arms feel heavy. And you're going to feel probably a little silly. But I love this exercise because it is so deceptively difficult, even though it requires so little movement. You're standing up straight still, and your arms now lift up. Now your palms face the floor and open up the fingers. Give your fingers a little bit of flexibility, like air out those phalanges. And you're now moving your feet from being shoulder width apart into a heel to toe or nearly heel to toe position. So right leg dominant people typically put the right leg in the rear. That's normal. That's fine. We're going to switch in a bit. And you look forward. Then the movement for the lighthouse is to turn your head slowly, as far to the right as possible, slowly, and then to turn your head as far to the left as possible. The benefits of this exercise are immediately clear in terms of balance, because as soon as you turn your head, we discombobulate the equilibrium of your inner ear. And that means that you're activating the sensory components that have to travel from your brain all the way down at lightning fast speed, all the way down to the tip of your toes to connect with your floor, to grip the floor. Why? Again, you don't want shoes. You really want to be in your feet. Although shoes make this easier because you have a little more stability if your foot is in a shoe. But the turning of the head, and now switch your feet so that the other foot is in the rear. And it might get even more challenging if you're right-handed and your left foot is in the rear, because the left leg naturally kind of absorbs most of the distribution of your weight. Pull in your belly button, squeeze those tummy muscles, zip them up, and then continue turning your head. Now, just a quick remark about the head turning. So obviously, there's a range of motion issues people have with their cervical spine. The neck is a spindly piece of equipment. It has a really big job. I told you I was going to talk about the placement of your head, the weight of your head, and its placement play a huge role in your balance and the center of your gravity, which affects your gait and also causes pain and suffering if you've deviated from what is proper posture. So that ear-shoulder alignment and the ability for your neck to turn 90 degrees so that you can look down the length of your right arm when you turn to the right, look down the length of your left arm when you turn to the left. Those are really important things to think about. You're not going to solve any of those issues with this workout. I'm going to post these exercises to the InShape Fitness blog today, so we will have that. But contact me if you have questions about the way that you can maybe improve your range of motion through your cervical spine and your neck, and we can proceed. But of course, be very careful. Talk to your doctor if you have questions about any of your ability levels and how restricted you need to be in terms of movement if you're starting an exercise regimen. Okay, now some jumping jacks. And if you don't like jumping jacks, you can just jog or skip in the floor, but I do want to get your heart rate up for about 30 seconds. So jumping jacks start now. We've hit the 9-minute level. I want to get you out of here in total of the podcast by 20 minutes. So really want to get you down on the floor for those 4 on the floor exercises. And jumping jacks are great. I do them every morning with my morning regimen. I exercise, by the way, every single morning. And I've talked about this in other podcasts. Go to the InShape Fitness Show, our other channel, if you have interest in the different ways I classify workouts, because a functional 5 to 10 minutes typically of a morning routine every single day is the best way to begin your morning. It is. And I'm not talking about looking good in a black dress. I'm not talking about looking good on the beach. I'm not talking about losing 10 pounds or any of that other stuff that's physically or visually rather appealing. I'm talking about function and energy. Function and energy. Super, super important. Okay, now your jumping jacks are done and we're getting on the floor. So we're going to start. We have 2 exercises that are going to be face down in the prone position. We're going to start. The first one is going to be to get on your hands and knees and just sit in child's pose for a second so that you have a sense for the position. I want you to be really relaxed when we begin with the 2 exercises where you face the floor. We're going to do one and then the other, and then we're going to turn over for the 2 exercises on your back. All right? Really easy. These are not exercises you're going to be surprised about, by the way. You probably have already picked the plank as one of them, and yes, that is going to be one of them. The first one actually is downward facing dog. So when you're ready, go ahead and bring yourself up into downward facing dog. I am not a yoga instructor. I don't believe in the practice of yoga as a standalone methodology or parameter for variable for fitness as a lifestyle, because range of motion, while it's really significant, and I write about it all the time, I talk about range of motion, flexibility all the time. In bending is what I call it in our work at InShape Fitness, but it is not something I do in a vacuum pretty much ever. So downward facing dog, where your butt is in the air, your legs are straight, and you should be able to hold this position where your palms are on the floor. You distribute, you open your fingers again. The flexibility of your phalanges, it really airs them out. They like it when the fingers are splayed. And then you use the fingertips and the top part of your palm so that you don't mash the heel of your hand into the floor. And this is across the board. If you are doing push-ups, if you are doing anything in quadruped, like a bird dog exercise, or anything at all where your hands are on the floor, burpees, mountain climbers, make sure that you use your whole hand, because you don't want to fatigue your wrists. All right. Then your butt is in the air and your legs are straight. You want to bend your knees a little bit if you have to, because you work your way. If you've got tight hamstrings, which likely you do, because everyone does, that is something that's going to be really hard to get your heels on the floor and to get your legs stretched out and straight. But just holding this position is really important. Okay. Now I want you to go back to child's pose for a second. We're going to go back to downward dog, but I want you to go down to child's pose, hold for 3 deep breaths, and then we're going to hold a plank. All right. Now, your elbows, a low plank is the plank we're going to do. So you're going to be on your elbows and forearms for your plank, and then you want to make sure that your elbows and your shoulders make a straight line. And then you walk out your feet so that you're resting on the tips of your toes and the balls of your feet. And you lift your body up into a plank. And this is for 30 seconds. Your time is going now. So it's not super, super hard in terms of the length of the time, but it's hard for some people. So if you need to drop to your knees, please drop to your knees. But try to keep your butt down. The key with the plank, as opposed to like the downward dog where your butt is in the air, the plank sets in motion. Again, this is a primitive component of your body's physicality. You don't get to do this on purpose, but your primitive brain turns on, activates all of the muscles that reside in your trunk that have to they isometrically contract as a unit in order to stabilize your body in the position. You can rest in child's pose for 3 more deep breaths now. Plank, we're going to go back to again as well. We're going to do another downward dog. We're actually going to do 2 more versions of both of the exercises. So we're going to go back to downward facing dog after your 3 deep breaths. And we're going to, I'm going to stop calling it downward dog now and call it a pike plank, because I call it a pike for a particular reason. I prefer it because it also helps me with my own psychology of not really being into the yoga sort of culture. So I like to call it a pike plank, because now what I want you to do is a pike squat. Your heart rate should elevate a little bit here. And this is the other thing about the morning routine. If you're doing a routine in the morning and you are able to set aside 10 minutes to exercise each morning, you want to get your heart rate up a little bit. So you bend your knees from downward facing dog. Don't let your knees actually touch the floor, but you bend your knees and then straighten your legs. Another 30 seconds. Go ahead and get started. Bend your knees, straighten your legs. Bend your knees, straighten your legs. Inhale, exhale naturally with the inhale coming through your nose, of course. You're halfway through. Keep that going. We are just getting the heart rate up here. You should feel it a little bit. You've got 4 seconds to go. 3, 2, 1. Now let's try going right into the plank. If you need to stop in child's pose and take a breath, that's fine. Stretch out your back a little bit, but we're going back to the elbows. Your 30 seconds starts again now, this time in the low plank. If you can, I want you to lift the butt up really, really high and then lower your hips so that your hip flexors and your pelvic bone, rather, almost touch the floor, but don't rest. And then back up and then back down. Some people call these belly busters, but they're up and then down. Just a moving plank. Moving planks are really hard because you've got that movement. You have to restabilize as you shift from the extreme position points, and you're activating different muscle groups in addition to this isometric contraction that you're forced into by your primitive brain. It's fabulous, right? So we're using survival of the fittest in some ways as well. Now we're going to go one more time back to the downward facing dog. So rest in child's pose for 3 deep breaths. And when we go into the downward facing dog or the pike plank this last time, what I want you to do is to bend your knees as though you did before. So now you're going to hover with the bent knees, and your knees are going to be about 2 inches off the floor. You're going to hover in this position. And if you can move one leg, tap the left foot out to the side, and then bring the left foot back in. And then tap the right foot out to the side and bring the foot back in. So you keep the knees bent down low like a four-legged animal. And then you're laterally moving the legs. And if you are strong and you want to make it like a jumping jack in the pike, I call them pike jacks. Go for it. You've got 20 more seconds to go. Keep going. Keep breathing. Your heart rate is up. And last 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Back straight to that plank. I'm going to put you right into it right now. 30 last seconds facing the floor. And this time as you're in the plank, if you can keep doing those jacks from the plank position, go for it. Pike jacks. And if you can't, just hold for another 30 seconds. You're already 15 seconds in. So if you're doing the jacks or just moving one leg and then the other, again, that's all fine. Part of the reason why I like doing this exercise as well as the previous one, the pike jacks or pike lateral steps, has to do with the activation of the outside of the leg as well. Okay, now turn your body over, hug your knees for a second. We got just a little bit of time to try the hip bridge, which is the first exercise to do as you're hugging your knees. Now put your hands on the floor beside your body, palms down. Bend your knees. Your feet should be on the floor straight. Don't turn your toes out. Remember, I said I was going to do this. Remind you again, don't turn your toes out. And then lift your body up into the hip bridge with your feet remaining flat on the floor. Good. And hold this position. So we're going to do the hip bridge, and then we're going to do something that my 91-year-old Madison Avenue client calls Fred Astaire. He's funny. He renames everything. I just called these toe taps for a long time, and then one of my other clients called them teacup toe taps or teapot toe taps because she felt like it was like a teapot. But the next thing you're going to do now that you've held the hip bridge for about 30 seconds is to let your butt rest back up on the floor. Keep your knees bent, but now lift your feet up so that your legs are suspended in the air at 90 degrees, both at your knees and your hips. And then you're going to Remain still with the right leg. Hold that leg still. The left leg, hinging at your hip, not bending your knee, but hinging at your hip. You tap your foot down onto the floor and then lift back up for 15 seconds, and your time starts now. So again, 91-year-old client calls them Fred Astaire. I'm going to call them Fred Astaire. I just love this guy, and he has renamed so many of my exercises. Child's pose, he calls the hedgehog. What's another really funny one? Oh, hip bridge. He won't do a hip bridge with two legs. He says it's too easy. So he always does them with one leg, and hip bridges he calls the car jack. So we're going to go back to the hip bridge. You're going to try this next. In fact, now that I can invoke his name one more time, or not his name, but his existence. So back into hip bridge, if you lift up your left leg and you hold the hip bridge with just the right leg on the floor, that's what he calls the car jack. And it's really uncanny when you lower the body down and lift it back up just with the right leg on the floor, and then repeat for 15 seconds with the left leg on the floor, which you can go ahead and do now. And then the last exercise, and I'm going to let you go, is to go back to the Fred Astaire. So we did 3 sets of the 2 exercises facing the floor, and we've done 2 sets of the exercises in the supine position, facing up with your back down. And the second version of the Fred Astaire is to simply take 30 seconds and alternate your toe taps. So left foot, then right foot, in a controlled manner. You should feel your lower tummy muscles activated, and if you need to tuck your hands up underneath your lower back for support, that's fine. But these exercises, which are mostly focused on core, as you could probably have been able to tell, are great exercises for stimulating the body early in the morning without equipment before you leave the house, so that you don't have to go to the gym and swipe a membership card in order to benefit functionally and energetically benefit from movement in your life. I'm Coach Kim from InShape Fitness. I'll be back later in the week with an InShape Fitness Show podcast. And as I said, I'm back in New York and actually have some holes in my schedule. So get in touch with me at bodybyinshape.com if you are in New York. And even if you're not in New York, you can certainly get in touch with me. I do consults over Skype and over the phone all the time, just with respect to navigating the selection process of exercises that you can do in your home or in your office, or maybe even in a hotel room if you travel for your work. So let me know if I can be of help. I will see you again soon.